Hey, thanks for tuning into the May Intro Challenge critique session. Congratulations to everybody who submitted some work and took the time to set the keys. That takes a lot of time and effort and can oftentimes be frustrating, but congratulations to everybody who submitted. And a big congratulations to our this past month's three winners, Jaturon Jetwiriyanon, Charles Ake, and Alejandro Potter. You guys did great. I had a good time looking at your shots. My name is Mcdermott. I am a senior animator at Blizzard Entertainment. During my time there, I have worked on such titles as Overwatch, World of Warcraft, StarCraft 2, a couple of others. I love game development. I'm a huge gamer and a rather large nerd. So that's enough about me. Let's jump right in and take a look at these shots. I'm really excited to break them down a little bit more. Jaturon Jetwiriyanon, congratulations, my friend. This turned out awesome. Thank you for submitting. I saw this one pop up on my Twitter feed, so I must admit I did see this one a little bit early. It was cool to see that you got this. Whether you rendered it or in an engine, that's really neat. Congratulations, that's cool. It's definitely the next step up, so that is awesome. Let's take a look at it a couple times, and then we'll kind of break down some of the things that I've noticed. All right, here we go. Okay, this time without all the chicken scratch. Okay, cool. All right, yeah, this I loved watching this. It was really fun to see. Really great idea, very technical in thought. I just really cool, really fun use of the teleporter. I will say I am a little bit confused because she does only, or I should say, Symmetra only throws one sentry through that teleporter, and on the other end there are three. So maybe she has a talent that I don't know about, that when she throws it through a teleporter, it splits into three, which just sounds frightening. That is a terrible mechanic, and I love it because I am a Symmetra player. So good thinking on that one. We need more of that. Overall, the shot's great. The one thing I would say, as far as like bringing it to the next level for you in particular, is something I mentioned in a previous critique just today, is that we just need to learn to respect every 1/24th of a second. And what that means, kind of in short, is, as one way it was described to me by a good friend of mine, is that you should be able to stop on any frame and say, I understand what's happening there. And like, for instance, in this frame, if this is the staging you had to have, and you put, your most important piece of this composition behind the text, it's really not the best seat in the house, right? So going through every frame, I mean, that's cool. That's a cool pose, and making sure that every frame is exactly what you want it to be. Like, this is a little bit, there's a little, if you're being really clean, we'll talk about, some of the arcs and stuff, but just like cleaning up all these little bumps and nicks. I know you're probably like, well, how do I do that? Man, trust me, animators are constantly trying to scale and push and pull to remove some of these just, weird deformations that we get from pushing rigs too far. But there are some ways of just translating and scaling if possible at all. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. And again, being sure that every frame is crafted. For instance, like these hands feel very very generic, very just like zeroed out. And so just again, if you pause on any frame, that it should just feel exactly the way it should feel. So cool. Well, that's just kind of like the big overall thing. But let's talk about some of these things in better detail. First off, you have this run cycle here. Let me turn these drawings off so we don't have to fight with those. You have this run cycle here, and I think the first leg comes in through here, and I think it's actually clipping through the other leg. And then on top of that, this foot feels like really high. Look at how high up that is. And so I can't tell if it's the foot is too high, or the root is too low, or maybe it's a combination of the two. But right now, this foot feels really high. And then, some of the shapes, like in here, like this kind of feels like an awkward run shape as far as like the square here. And then, like, kind of what I'm trying to draw right here is showing you where the foot is and what a typical foot arc can, if you're tracking the arc of a heel, this is a very generic heel arc, but it can, start here and then flavor to taste, as they say. So you start here and then you adjust it to the needs of your shot to be specific to what you are making. This is just kind of like a generic formula, basically. But you can start there. And that will help with some of these like really crunched up knee shapes that don't feel correct. You have the gun pop in here too, which oh yeah, let's look at this right here. You see like how this looks like really uncomfortable. So if I were to freeze frame on this frame here, frame 12, this pose I feel like we could totally polish this pose up. We could have like more extension here. This shape in through here could feel a little bit more natural. Like this knee up at this time where at this passing position where this leg is bent this way just doesn't feel balanced or like it's correctly running. So, and then also it might be because the symmetry is too low down in the root. So raising the root, I feel like I'm singing a song here. Raising the root here might help give some extension to this leg, which I see you have some extension here. Try to see what that is. Bam. Oh, I see why it is. I just realized the foot sliding. Aha! So we can see right here where this line is and where the tip of the toe is, and then they slide. Oh, I see. I can't tell if that's the camera because there's a lot of camera movement. But then right here, this looks like it moves forward. And then right here, it's on this line now, and then it goes. So. Like really just cleaning up your footwork to make sure that it is real and it's working correctly. I think just needs a little bit more time and refinement. Bam. And then on top of that, some of the other things that will help is like right now you have a very clompy heel to toe. I would probably watch a lot more, take a look at some more running reference, like sprinter reference. Not that we're making Symmetro be a world-class sprinter by any means. Again, this is kind of diving more into specificity. So you don't want to take the exact run that a sprinter would use at the Olympics because Symmetro is probably not an Olympic runner. So how would Symmetro run? Now, we can look at them to see, I don't want to say perfect, but how great runners should run, what the mechanics should look like, and then we can downsize that or downplay that according to our character. If that makes sense. Okay, so let's kind of keep moving so I don't get stuck too long on one thing here. So right in here we get some really squared limbs. As you can see, it's just very square, square, square. And so what I'm trying to do with this drawing right here is like here's the elbow and here's the wrist and here's this. It's just trying to add this white line is just trying to show you what this line of action could look like. We could, by using, if they have bendy bows. Now bendy bows are a slippery slope, so you don't want to like take this and make it look like this. You don't want to make it look like he's got, or Symmetro's got like a limp forearm and a limp bicep. That would look ridiculous. So this is just more to help with the rhythm of the shape. So for instance, on something like this, you could kind of, oops, that's even too much. I'm drawing with the mouse again. But like you kind of draw this out so that you remove that that one hard edge, right? And you can kind of smooth this out. So that way we're not making it be this, we're not trying to make it be loopy. We're just trying to smooth out those creases a little bit to clean it up. And a lot of times they have bendy bows. If they don't, that's a different story. We could deform the mesh, which is a whole different lecture, or we can do our best to just kind of position it in ways that we don't hit these hard edges. Knowing the rig restrictions is useful. All right, so right now we have the gun pop on it, and I feel like there's just a better place that we can hide that information. I know this is for a game, but this just feels a little too gamey in a moment where we don't need to be so gamey. I'll kind of explain that in a little bit more, where I think a good spot where that pulling. Oh, I'll just talk about it now. We're already talking about it. So right when you drop in here, the arm already kind of comes down here, right here. It's already kind of suggesting that it's down. At that point in time, if Symmetra were to come out holding this laser like they are, I think that would be totally a viable option for where the gun came from. And I think it works better and cleaner than it just snapping into frame here. The next thing I want to talk about is when she's jumping down here. This kind of just feels like a very meek, very weak anticipation pose. This doesn't feel like a very strong. Sorry, fixing camera here. This doesn't feel like a very strong anticipation before she leaps elegantly through this teleporter. It just kind of looks a little too meek, in my opinion. And then on top of that, right here, as we're going down, as Symmetro is going down, the camera is rotating up, and it's actually leading the action of Symmetro. And the problem that has is it makes her start to feel a little weightless and floaty, because we're like leading the action instead of following the subject. And rules are always meant to be broken, so I'm going to caveat that with this, but you should always follow the motion of your subject with your camera as opposed to leading your subject with your camera. You should always follow your subject with your camera. It's just much cleaner, and it's what happens in real life. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier. We have grown up our whole life seeing things videotaped and filmed to be put on movie screens and television. We're used to seeing the camera lag behind the actors a little bit. It's only natural for the cameraman to not know exactly what the subjects are going to do and have to react. So for us, we've seen it so much in our whole life that we know when it feels wrong, even if we don't know why that's wrong. And so in this particular moment, she starts to feel a little floaty because of that. So one thing I would suggest is like holding that frame down a little bit longer. The camera down. I wouldn't rotate it up a little as early as you do. I'd probably hold it down till about frame 24 or 25-ish. And I know that might make her start to kind of fight with the top of the screen up here, but that's okay. Because as soon as you fight with the top of the screen, that's the reason the cameraman has a reason to adjust the camera, because you're starting to lose the subject. So boom, you come up there, and then you go up into exactly what you have in here. You reach over for the gun, you jump through here. I love all this stuff. My only suggestion for this is kind of what I mentioned about earlier. We have all this text and word here, and it's over the face, and so for me that's distracting. And if we go back to the very beginning, if we were to flip the text to the other side here, then we'd have it be covering the run cycle here. So we'd be just having it right here. So flipping it from one side to the other is just going to give us a whole new slew of problems that we may not want to deal with. And I think that we can find a more elegant solution here as well. What I would propose this is a moment of true grace and elegance. Symmetro's done this a million times, I assume, jumping from one to the next, especially the way they're flipping through this so confidently without hesitance. And flipping, you know what I mean? I feel like this isn't the first rodeo here. So I feel like as an audience member, with all the cool action that you have here, this is a really cool moment for a reprieve, for us to like focus in on this face and then have it be the center point of your shot. So that the head is like rotating around this pivot point and then comes into where you have here, because this, other than the motion blur, is probably one of my favorite parts of your shot. Like, it's only one frame, but how cool is that where you see the head and it's like the whole body's rotating around the head and we get to focus on that moment. It almost feels like something I've seen in a movie before that, I don't know, just it's giving me chills talking about it. I'm excited to see something like that. And it also, a great movie reference for something like this is Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max, I think the average shot length in Mad Max was a 1.5 seconds to 1.75 seconds. So they didn't have the time to redirect the audience's eye to every different quadrant of the screen. So they locked most everything into a reticle that sits in the middle of the screen, and everything had to take place within there. So that way the eye didn't have to strain looking around, and it just made what they would do is they would play with how the camera energy would cut, and that's what would give the energy from shot to shot, but then it would always be in the middle for you to watch, so your eye didn't have to find it again. And I think this is a really good moment to use some of that, stand on the shoulders of those giants and maybe steal some of their knowledge and probably implement it here. Okay, then we come down in here. I love all this stuff. It's really cool. It's really rotational. I love how it's dragging behind. I think that just feels really nice. But then right about here, I'm going to turn off my drawings for a second. Right about here, so if we watch this, I'm going to frame through this. It's rotational, rotational. It's rotational coming around the body, rotational coming around the body. And then right here, it feels like it goes from around the body to then slamming down on the ground. And it feels like it takes a really sharp, weird arc. Do you feel that? If I'm framing through this a lot, bam. And I'm just talking about the rotationalness of the arm and how it goes round and then slams down. It just seems to come short on that arc. So what I'm suggesting here with some of these drawovers is keeping that line of action here, and again, still suggesting that line of action here. Because right now, what's happening is the line of action is now suggesting that the elbow is going, this direction, or coming from this direction as opposed to coming from this direction. So having this arc still coming from that direction is going to help tremendously. I think what you'll need to do with that is you'll probably need to tuck this shoulder. Oops, sorry. Drawing with my mouse. Got to remember, use that tablet. Bring that shoulder down here a little bit. Have that drag more. You know what I mean? This shoulder's going to have to probably be here. And then you can have still the gun's still dragging behind. It can kind of start to rotate here, and then into what you have there as it slides under the back. But just cleaning up that arc would be a big help. And then I think when we get into here, again, just harking back to respecting every 24th of a second, we get into this shape here where we kind of get these collapsing calves. And for lack of a better way of putting it, this is just a very crotchy kind of staging. And I think we could find something that just fits what we're trying to say more. There's some cool lines in here, and the chest shape is cool, and the head shape is cool. But I guess this now comes to me starting a discussion and asking you, Jaturon, what exactly your intention is here. Would you like to show the face more, or would you like to focus more on the gun that I think Symmetro is loading? I'm not really entirely sure. We'll kind of talk about that in a second as well. But this is kind of a crossroad. What is the most important part of this next sequence? Is it how Symmetro feels about this moment? Is it how they load the gun to initiate this moment? What is it that we should be really focused on? And the reason why that's important is because if we know what that is, we can kind of stage this accordingly. If we want to focus on the face, let's punch this camera in a little bit. Let's show Symmetro's reaction. Let's show how they feel about this situation. You know what I mean? Let's make this tight until, this gun goes, you see the claws go, and you can, as you see those claws open up, we do that camera punch out like you have, and then you pretty much know what you have. But we remove the crotchiness sometimes of some of that motion, and we kind of tighten it on the things that are most important. Another way we could kind of look at this is if, again, you're gonna have to really excuse some terrible drawings coming up here. If I still have, here we go. This looks like an alien, but this is a really crude drawing, where when they come through, they could be Symmetro could be more on this knee here, and then standing on this foot here, firing this gun. And the staging, as you can see, this arm right here is now on screen right, and Symmetro's face would be on screen left. So you could have like a staging that's something like this. You know what I mean? Something like that. But Symmetro would be behind the gun. And then that way, when you do your slam back here, your crash zoom here, or pull out here, we go into basically what you have, but and so it doesn't take too far away. So again, this just kind of comes down to exactly what you want, what story you want to tell, what you think is the most important. And that's kind of why I'm opening this as a discussion for you to kind of posing it as a question as to what you want to do with this. Certain things like this, like if the face is something that's interesting to you, this effects bloom or this light bloom here is really distracting. You know what I mean? It is cool, it's a cool effect, but if overused, it can just kind of, to me, it just can tarnish the hard work and the really good work that's already trying to stand up on its own 2 feet. And that kind of brings me to this next point, is that it becomes really noisy and really loud. I do love these effects that you have going. I love the idea that you've started a car wash. Again, I'm a huge Symmetro fan, so when I'm seeing you guys make a car wash, play the games, it's Be Still My Beating Heart, so I get it. It's awesome. But I might suggest kind of adjusting where all these are placed, because a lot of it's covering up Symmetro, and the problem with that becomes it gets really messy. You know what I mean? It gets really messy in here. I can't see exactly the pose. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be looking at. I guess this is the vanishing point, so that's where I should be looking. But the other thing about that vanishing point that feels a little odd to me is that these are all weapons and items used to attack, but they're all attacking the floor. So it doesn't feel very heroic that it's attacking maybe a mine or something that's on the floor. I don't know. It didn't feel as heroic as maybe it could be. So one of my suggestions what I was playing around with is if you put like a turret here, keep that one where it is, move this one slightly, so that you have something that's like a little bit like they're all going to a vanishing point that's would be reasonably a person, and then you have this Symmetro on a knee, and you kind of see this like the shape, and you see it shooting, adding that fourth beam. So now you have all these beams going into your vanishing point. And we don't, reducing the bloom, reducing the amount of time that Symmetro themselves is behind a lot of light bloom and effects, just makes it all clearer, and everything, you get to kind of see where everything's coming from. So this is just a kind of a suggestion to kind of help open the staging so that everything that Symmetro is doing is clear, that the effects aren't covering our main characters and our heroes, things like that. But again, I don't know if this is exactly the right idea, but something along these lines I think will help solve for some of the messiness that's kind of happening in this final staging. Yeah, other than that, Jaturon, this is awesome. I've really had a great time looking at this stuff. I hope that this feedback is useful for you. And again, if it's not here, then in the future or down the road, hopefully something that we've talked about today will help or inspire you moving forward. But congratulations on your victory, and thank you for submitting and playing. It's been great. So thank you.